Welcome to Sex 101. We are your instructors, Melissa and Gabe Kolstad. And
I wouldn't say that.
Well, I mean,
I'm an expert.
Yeah, exactly.
Just kidding.
All right. Well, hey, we are talking in this episode of Marriage Monthly about sex and how it does matter in marriage.
So the title's actually Sex Matters.
Well, maybe.
Maybe.
Unless we change it to Sex 101.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Okay. But I wanted to say, to get this started, I had some crazy ideas about sex when we got married. Just saying. Some of them, I'm not even sure how I arrived at some conclusions, you know? And I wonder if that's like true for a lot of people. Like you went to some version of sex university as a kid.
Yeah.
And, you know, you picked up ideas along the way.
From the playground?
Or, you know, magazines or friends or TV, you
movies.
Yeah. Like when we were growing up as young adults, you know, Friends was the TV show that sort of, it did change people's understanding of sex, sexuality, what was acceptable.
Because they were sleeping with everybody and anybody.
Yeah. And so you've got all of these inputs coming into your brain. Hopefully a lot of that coming from also the Bible. You know, thankfully I grew up in a home
but generally not.
Yeah, generally not. But I grew up in a home where it was like, I did get some instruction from my parents on sex that was biblical, godly advice that I think helped. And yeah, so that's why I've had to train you all these years, obviously.
I had more like, just don't do it.
Well, no, you're right. There was just almost...
Just don't do it.
Don't do it. Don't talk about it was definitely...
And then you get married and that night you're like, oh, wait.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
What? Wait.
We're going to be in so much trouble. Yeah. Almost feels like. But anyways, I did want to say a few things as we start out, and then we're going to hear from you about some really important stuff as it relates to sex in marriage. I think to frame this up, one, this is one of the most important topics we can get right if we want to have a healthy, happy marriage that lasts a long time. Mm-hmm. You know, hopefully for life is what we're always saying. We're all about healthy, lifelong marriages, healthy, happy, lifelong marriages. Mm-hmm. And part of what happens is we separate the physical, like somehow separate sex from marriage or sex from relationship as though it's an other than thing. But God
just like roommates.
Yeah. And God did say the two shall become one flesh. He was actually talking about
physical.
The whole thing. It's not separate. It's not just relationally coming together. It's not just emotionally. It's not just physical. It's everything because we are one person.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, our bodies and our souls they commingle.
Yeah, we're merging lives.
And then now we're coming together. Two bodies, two souls, two everythings make one person in marriage. And I think something that reminds me of this is if you think about sex as an important part of marriage, the act of sex or making love is an important part of marriage. And it's not unlike, now forgive me if you can never get this out of your head again, but it's not unlike as a follower of Jesus, communion, the act of communion is the remembrance of the body and the blood of Christ. And it's a remembrance of the sacrifice of Christ. And it is designed to be this repetitious discipline in our lives where we do come back to the body and the blood. And it draws our hearts back to the cross. It draws our hearts back to, again, the love that he had for us.
Remembering why it matters.
Yeah, remember it. And I think in some ways, maybe that's also a way to look at the act of sex in marriage is that it's not like, I mean, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And it has so many wonderful benefits for a couple. It does draw them back together. And, you know, we are firm believers that sex is a gift. It was given by God to people. It was given to be used in the safety and the confines of the secure relationship between one man and one woman for life. I mean, we are firm believers in that.
I so agree with that. And I want to mention something on that, if you don't mind. I think it's important and it is a safety thing because I know a lot of people that are flippant about their sexual activity. They have multiple partners. They, you know what I'm saying? Like it's and I know there's been a couple guys that I've known in my life that have been accused of rape because they've been sexually active, even though they didn't do it. And it's one of those things where it's like, you got to be so careful. Like the reason God made it for a man and a woman in marriage, one couple, is because it gets messy. STDs and like just wrong accusings. It can get so messy.
Yes.
It gets really hard. And so I think it's a safety measure that God said, no, just one man, one woman for life.
Yeah.
And that's why he did that. He's not trying to deprive us.
Yeah.
I don't feel deprived.
No.
But I just think that it's important to think about that. This is a safety measure that Christ put in place for us. And I think it's important.
Yeah.
And I don't think people look at that like that.
Totally.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. A couple more things. I just want to talk about a little bit about the purpose of marriage, because again, when I was younger, even if you were to go ask some godly person, like, what's the purpose of sex in marriage? They would give you these 3 P's. It was very common. Three purposes for sex. And I think they're good. But might not be complete. They'd say pleasure, which is great. We all love that. Procreation, to start a family, to raise a family. And then protection. I like that. I love the protection piece too, because there is that protection in the safety of a marriage. That's where right. Sex is a protection, because it does give you that safe space to fully express yourself, and to know that you're fully loved. And it's a beautiful thing. But I think that misses a little bit the intimacy, the unity. It misses a little bit the self-control that is, again, part of sex. And I'm saying that because if God gave sex to us as a gift to be exercised between one man and one woman for life, how many temptations come along the way for men and women who were married, where you have to exercise self-control. Yeah. And it's this part, I think that's why somebody made the statement that marriage is the number one discipleship tool that God has in the world, because it does require you to grow to be more like Jesus. You're going to grow in self-discipline, self-control. You're going to grow in patience. I think that's a part of why God gave us sex. I think he gave it to us so that we could express unconditional love. I think he gave it to us so we could express generosity. So I think when you think about, well, why is there even sex in the first place? There's all these reasons, and I think it has everything to do with understanding who God is, and then showing love to the person that he's given us to love for the rest of our lives. And so anyways, that's my bit. How about you?
I like it. Well, as we were thinking about this topic, and this was my idea, by the way.
Yeah, always thinking about sex.
Because it's such a complicated topic in marriage sometimes. And I think that it's not meant to be.
Right. So
anyways, and so the verse and I told Gabe this, I said, there's these verses that keep popping in my head, and I'm like telling them to him, and he's like, oh yeah, okay. So I'm going to read them. It's 1 Corinthians 7:3-5. And it says, the husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and the wife should fulfill her husband's needs. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. Do not deprive each other of sexual relations unless you both agree to refrain from sexual intimacy for a limited time so that you can give yourselves more completely to prayer. Afterwards, you should come together again so that Satan won't be able to tempt you because of your lack of self-control. And I'm thinking, I don't have a lack of self-control. But when you're separated for a while and the devil gets in there, I mean, everybody's susceptible. So when I was thinking through these verses, and I know those are some
that's deep stuff. Yeah. That's heavy hitting. Yeah.
But let me just break it down a little bit. We are to fulfill each other's sex needs. Gabe's body's mine and vice versa. But in saying that, we should never take advantage of each other in that way, because this is special and it's sacred. And so we are to be tender and respectful toward each other, and nobody else gets to be involved.
Yeah.
As I was thinking through this, I was thinking this is a sacred bond between us, between you couples out there. That means no other people are invited to the party.
Yeah. In any way, because there's so many ways you could
strip clubs,
right?
No porn.
Yeah.
No magazines, nothing like that. That is inviting other people. And God said, it's okay. He's bringing the two of you together. Just the two of you. So nobody else is invited to that party. So I think that's important to say. And also it says, don't deprive each other. And this is why I wanted to talk about this topic. And this is what brought it up, because I have a lot of conversations with women about, stresses in marriage and stuff like this. And this comes up a lot. And so when you deprive each other, though, you start to feel distant. And I know there's been times where Gabe and I are super busy, or, I'm just going to be frank, I have my period, things like that. And we're going 2-3 weeks without having sex. You feel distant.
Yeah.
You don't mean to. You're not trying to separate from each other. It just happens. And so when you're feeling like that, the devil would love to come in, love to come in during that time, because you feel insecure. You feel alone. You feel maybe divided or division with you guys. You're defensive. And when that kind of starts, trouble's on its way. So guard your sex life. I think it's really, really important. And one good night or weekend away can fix it.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true.
It's true. It seems so easy, but it really is.
Yeah.
It's just making each other a priority and it's important. So make sex a priority. And there in that passage, it's interesting because it says the only reason that you can deprive each other is when you're focused in prayer.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? So I'm like, what does that look like? Like, I'll ask you. I'm just thinking, what does that look like where you're like, okay, we can't have sex because we have to focus on prayer right now?
Right. Well, I know it should be very, very quick. 30 seconds.
Fast prayer.
Just kidding. Nice. Is that what they mean by fasting? It's fast.
I don't know. I don't think so.
No, I mean, that's probably to the spirit of it though, is to go like, let's say a couple is facing a battle and they're trying to come at it together. Maybe it's a, I don't know, custody thing. Maybe it's a financial thing. Maybe it's a health thing, and Jesus does say certain things can't be accomplished in any other way but fasting and prayer. Fasting being the giving up of something. Maybe this is one of those things that you could fast. Okay. I mean, just to be totally honest, it's never crossed my mind. But
I know.
I've fasted a lot of stuff, but I think that's the spirit of it is to go, maybe it's just time to focus on your relationship with God together. But you got to be aware that there's a lot of risk if you don't set the parameters really well for that.
That's what I was going to say. Like, honestly, I would say just my own personal opinion, that focused prayer and fasting and from that specifically shouldn't go over 2 weeks. I'm just throwing it out there. It's just because past 2 weeks, you start to feel disconnected. I don't care how you slice it. It's just how it is. Yeah.
And certainly wouldn't use this as a weapon against a spouse either. Like, I think I just need to focus on God right now. I mean, that could be a real cop out.
Oh, totally. Yeah, because God gave us this as a gift to be enjoyed together.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be happening regularly.
Yeah. And I mean, okay, just back to this for 1 second.
Yeah.
The thing about men and women and how we're so different. No, you're probably going to get to this a little bit, but I think part of this is that we both need to be working toward this because, like you said, you can't be demanding in all of this when you're thinking about sex. And you just made me think about like, okay, the coming back together after a period of going like, we're going to focus on the Lord. You still got to go back to the courting days in that even. Like, so let's say there's a week where you're going, we're going to really focus on prayer. Well, so what I'm saying is we got to set the parameters so we know if it's 7 days, then on day 6, how am I going to start courting you again? Yeah. Because you know how it is, microwave, crock pot. Yes. And it's not like you could just turn that on instantly.
Well, you
as
can.
a woman. Well, I can. You can't. So I have to be aware of that, right?
You're right.
So I think we have to be prepared for these things.
Yeah, that's good.
Got to be a focus.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I just think it's just thinking about that part, I think can be used as a cop out for people to be like, it's true. I mean, yes, it's messy and sometimes you are, too tired and all these things. But it's a requirement, I think, for marriage. Yeah. I think it absolutely is. So
Paul makes that clear.
Why do we not make it a priority though? That's the question. So I'm going to talk about the sex busters.
All right.
And then Gabe's going to come back and talk about the sex builders. But the sex busters, since I'm a chick, I get to talk about the busters because there's a bunch. Too busy. I don't have time. My mind's going a million miles an hour. I've got this on my plate. I got this on my plate. I got this. And I understand that. Like, I get that it can get chaotic and busy and you're almost like two ships crossing the night because you each have your own thing and that kind of stuff. But that is just one of the sex busters is being too busy, and it doesn't make it an excuse for me to do it. I think if this is a priority, if your relationship's a priority, sex needs to be a priority, and you got to make time. You're too busy if you're too busy to have sex with your spouse. That's just what I think. Kids are a sex buster. I remember having kids. I remember having little kids at home. I remember nursing Caitlin and potty training Dawson. And I was exhausted. I had someone latched onto me most of the day. Caitlin never took a bottle. Dossie was always hanging on me. I was just like, I'm so tired. If somebody else touches me today, I'm going to smack them. I remember those days. And then I went for round 3 and had my Caleb. So I was like, and he was a snuggle bug. So he's always hanging on me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have any more room for any more touches. But you know what? You have to make room for the extra touches of your husband. And let me tell you why. kids leave.
That's good.
You got to take care of this relationship because all my kids are grown and they all have their own lives and their own careers, their own relationships. They have their own things going. And now it's just us again. And it's like, okay, if I didn't nurture this for the 25 years that I was raising kids at home, that would be an issue.
It would really be
a huge issue.
And it happens all the time. I mean, there's
all the time.
What are they, the 2 and the 22, 2 years and 22 years tend to
divorce.
be high divorce years in marriage because 2 years because the honeymoon is super great and then the rest of it's really hard.
Yeah.
And then 22 because you've raised kids and they're gone.
Yeah.
And it's just you again.
And like, what am I supposed to do with you? I'm used to pouring all my energy into these kids. And it's important that you do that. And the greatest thing I did as a mom was be a mom, like as a person, because I loved being a mom. And I felt like, I told Gabe the other day, I said, I raised 3 amazing kids. I'm done. I'm retired. I literally said that the other day.
He's like, what's wrong with you? What's taking you so long?
He's like, I know. I'm like, what's wrong? Hurry it up. I'm ready. I'm done. Because like they were my greatest gift and I loved it. But we can't use our kids as an excuse to not have sex. Health issues. I know a lot of people that have chronic pain, stomach issues. And I can't really empathize with that. But I know that it's hard. But I think just still making sex priority, it has to happen. You can't, because these issues can go on for years. I mean, I know people that have had issues for years of chronic pain. So you just don't have sex for years and years and years because you're in too much pain.
What do you do though? I mean, what advice do you have? Like, that's a really difficult one.
It's so hard. Yeah. I would say take 2 Advil and call me in the morning. No,
okay.
Just kidding.
I think that, communication is key there.
Yeah.
I mean, just to get nitty gritty for a second, you could talk about what would be less painful. You could talk about what might, what creative ideas, because I think to your point, you can't just say, sorry, I'm sick for the next 2 years.
Right. Because like, I know some of my girlfriends have chronic pain and it's been years and years and years. And I'm thinking, well, if you're like so sick all the time that you can't ever have sex with your husband, I'm thinking, to me, that's giving him a foothold or the devil a foothold into his life.
Yeah.
Because he needs sex. And if you're not supplying that, a wandering eye could happen. And I'm not saying that is going to happen, but you better guard your man. Like I make sure this guy is only looking at me. And so
that's true.
Be careful with the health thing.
Because I know women want to be pursued, but so do men.
Yeah. Guys want to be pursued. They don't want to be left out. Nothing. Yeah. And I just think it's important. I mean, I understand the health it's hard, but I mean, at least try to squeeze it in once a week, because it's hard. Body insecurity. This is huge for chicks. Like, this is so big. Most guys are like, whatever. They'll walk into the room buck naked. They don't care. They're all so proud. And I'm like, oh gosh. But girls are so insecure. Like, we're like, oh, don't look at this. Don't look at my cellulite. Don't look at my arms flabbing. Don't look at my chin. Don't look at my wrinkles. I mean, we are fiercely insecure. We have so much body insecurity. But Gabe was mentioning it at our worship service on Sunday. He was teaching and he was talking about Mike Riley, one of our best friends growing up, sang at our wedding, If You Could See What I See. And it's such a sweet song because the point is, if you could see what I see, you would love yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really important. And it's a beautiful song. And it reminded me, if I look in the mirror and I don't like what I see, I'm going to let Gabe be my mirror. I'm going to let him say, you're beautiful, you're perfect, you're hot. And he says all those things. And guys, if you're not saying that to your girl, do that. But also girls, do it back to your guy. Because I think, especially girls, we just get so insecure and we don't feel pretty or sexy or anything. And we're like, ugh, and we focus on all the gross or all the, mess ups on our bodies and our faces. But don't let that hold you back from having sex. Put on something pretty. Put on some perfume and make it happen anyways. And trust me, he's just happy you're in the room.
Yeah.
He doesn't care 100%. if your baby weight's not gone or if you're just not feeling it and you're feeling a little bloated. He doesn't care. He just wants to be with you. Trust me. Another thing is conflict. And this is going to get a little more deep here for a second. If you have unresolved conflict, it's hard to jump in bed and be intimate. And so work through the conflicts that you're having. Resentment. If you're having resentment in your relationship, you got to work it out, talk it out, spend some time together, maybe go to a counselor. If you have unforgiveness, again, go to a counselor, work through it, talk about it, be open, because that kind of stuff, it's hard to be intimate when you're holding something over each other's heads. You're just frustrated or you're irritated, and it's really hard to be intimate on those.
I think that areas. Is, if you go to Ephesians 4 in the New Testament, Paul's like, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. I mean, he's really advocating for same-day conflict resolution, which is hard, but if you practice it, you don't end up carrying that stuff into bed, which is really, really great.
Which, is huge. And then the last couple is, this one's kind of crazy, but to me, other people, like it could be mother-in-laws, it can be an ex, it can be your best friend. If there's somebody putting a wedge in your relationship or distracting your relationship from sex or whatever it is, don't let them in. Just put that block up. And then the last thing I want to focus on is just competition. And by that, I mean another man or woman. Because if you are chatting with another person of the opposite sex and you're connected with them and you share, secrets or intimate things with them, you guys are working together closely, I'm just going to push back on it and say, have boundaries.
Yeah.
Protect yourself. Gabe and I do not ever go to coffee dates or lunches or drive in a car with anybody of the opposite sex, ever. And we never have.
Never have. Yeah.
So I think that you can look at our relationship and be like, well, they're above reproach. Well, it's because we put these guardrails in place. It's because we have boundaries. And I think another person showing your spouse attention can be a distraction. And then, or if someone's showing you attention, that's a distraction. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I kind of like spending time with that person. Oh, they compliment me. Oh, they're really sweet to me. Or they show me more attention than my spouse does. And all of a sudden there's this competition happening, and you're holding out sex from your spouse, and it can go on for a long time. And all of a sudden you're in an emotional relationship with another man or woman, and then that can move into something sexual. And all of a sudden you have an affair on your hands, you're getting a divorce, and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to nip it at the bud. Like, you got to go way up front. These are my boundaries I have to make sure that nobody crosses that ever. So thank you for the compliment, but that's where it ends. We don't chat on the phone. I don't text you. We don't chat anywhere. We don't go to coffee ever. It's just a safety. It's a guardrail. And I think everybody needs to be more conscious of that than we are. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh gosh. I mean, the scenario you just described is so unfortunately real.
I've seen it too many times. And I'm just like,
we've worked with a lot of families in that kind of crisis, and it's brutal. I mean, it's brutal for the couple. It's brutal if there's kids involved. Restoration after that is possible. It is possible.
And we've seen it happen.
Seen that. It's just, oh my gosh.
Don't let it get that far down the road. I mean, I'm just saying, these are all sex busters: busy, kids, health, body insecurity, conflict, other people, resentment, unforgiveness, competition. I'm just saying, like, pay attention to the things happening around you that are blocking you from the most important relationship, earthly relationship you have here. So we got to be conscious of that, because the devil really does, like scripture says, really would love to get a foothold and really screw up your relationship. And so for us, on the front end of that is stay intimate and sexy with your spouse and be red hot lovers for each other. We just finished a book, and it's called Red Hot Monogamy by Bill and Pam Farrell.
Yeah.
It's a great book. You guys are going to want to read that, but it's a sexy book, but it talks a lot about this. And this is probably what spurred this on for me, I would guess maybe, but I'm just saying,
that was
guard
one of your
this.
Sex books. I can't
One
remember
of my sex books. Yeah. No, but these are the sex busters, and let's not let them into our life and put a wedge in this relationship. But Gabe's going to talk real quick about sex builders.
Yeah.
So take some notes on this.
Yeah, some simple things that you can do to build this, to create some momentum in this area. We all want to have momentum in this area. I think the first one is security and stability. And maybe this is coming a little bit from me from a male to female perspective, but I know for sure that when Melissa is most receptive to being intimate is when she feels secure and things are stable.
Yeah.
It's just difficult if they're not, and that doesn't mean that you can never have, a financial problem or that you would let that be an excuse. But if no matter which side of the relationship you're on, being the person who has a track record, who is stable, who does what they say they will do,
Yeah,
who
shows up,
who creates security in the relationship, who doesn't undermine the other one, who doesn't make them wonder if there's something going on behind the scenes. Those are all such hard things. So on the flip side, then how do you build that? Well, it is with the compliments. It is with the pursuit. It is with the consistency, I think, and the security and stability. And I know that doesn't sound sexy at all, but for some reason it is magic.
It is magic
in a relationship.
Yeah.
I think another one is time together is a sex builder. I mean, it's not just quality time, it's quantity time. And they always say quantity time is only possible if you have quality time is only possible if you have quantity time, right? You have to have lots of time. Some of that's going to turn out to be quality time. Not all of it though.
No.
But when you find that you've got enough time together, then you're not starving for attention.
Yes.
You're not gasping for psychological air. Okay, now that's a sex builder. And it's the environment that you could go, hey, I think, this is actually going to happen. Another one is Love and Respect. I think of that book by Emerson Eggerichs, Love and Respect, because this is kind of the key driver for men and women in a relationship of what makes them want to reciprocate. It's that cycle. They call it a crazy cycle when there's conflict and anger and all that. And they say somebody's got to interrupt the crazy cycle with either, depending on who it is, love or respect. If it's, if the man is interrupting, then they're going to interrupt it with love. Not because they feel like loving, not because the other person has done something great that they're responding to, but because they know that's their responsibility. And so the man shows love, not just because they decide to. And if it's the woman to the man, she shows respect, not because he's earned respect, not because, she's like, can't wait to do it, but because she knows that's her responsibility. That's the starter of that intimacy happening again.
Because guys cannot thrive without respect.
Goodness.
Like if they
shuts everything down.
Belittle, is nothing.
I mean,
works.
That's one of the very few things that could make a guy not want to have sex.
Yeah,
is feeling disrespected. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah,
a guy could probably get through sex even if there's a conflict happening.
Right. Well, most likely, but
definitely if there's a financial crisis, who cares? But feeling disrespected, that's one of the very few things, but that would make a guy walk away from sex.
Yeah.
And so I think that's important to know is that, so show that love, show that respect. Those are sex builders.
Yeah.
Running on full, meaning that if you know your partner's love language, just, filling that tank is a sex builder. Positivity. I think this is so important because I think it gets overlooked. Positivity. Like if your spouse asks you how your day's going and you're like,
yeah, always down,
that's just
negative.
Probably not going to end the day in the right spot,
Right.
But positivity, like, how's it going? What's the bright side of your day? Well, I got you,
Yeah.
What's something you could say? How do you be a positive person? Because positivity is a sex builder in marriage. Confidence is a sex builder. To be a person who does the work, and I always say this at church, at our church at Westside, I always say, like, I got to work on myself a lot. I got to work on my mind a lot. I have to work to be confident. It doesn't just come naturally to me. And I know it's important, though, because a person who projects confidence is easier to be around. And it's hard sex is difficult with insecurity, right? But confidence is a sex builder.
Yeah.
And you do that. Yeah, you do that by doing the work to go, I am, here's who I am in Christ, and and thinking right and thinking on the right things. And, those are the things that build that confidence. Good health. You mentioned health. Yeah. I think good health is a sex builder. If somebody's always achy and breaky, it's just tough to imagine that scenario, but to go, I'm feeling good. I'm strong. I take care of myself.
Yeah.
Those are sex builders. Oneness is a sex builder when you realize, and I think this is something you referred to, but when you realize, my body belongs to you. And when I act that out, I'm much more sexy to you. When you act that out, you're much more sexy to me because we're deferring to each other. And the last one for me is hotel rooms are sex builders.
Hotel sex.
Just the idea that you would invest in your relationship to go, like, let's go get away. Let's go have fun. Let's do something spontaneous. Let's get a new experience. Hotel room. I don't know what it is about hotel rooms, but they're just magic for couples. And And so I think those are some of the sex builders. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, those are great. I love it. But I know all the question that the guys are wondering is how often.
Well, then we have one frequently asked question came in.
How often do you have sex?
Yeah, how often can we do it is the question every guy wants to know.
It varies between men and women.
Yeah. It does, oddly. Because the guys, they had a suggestion for this. Yeah, every day. Multiple times.
Chicks are like once or twice a week, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's up to you.
I mean, we don't have a prescription.
No.
But,
I know some people that are like, we have sex every Sunday and Tuesday or whatever like that. I mean, that's cool.
Whatever.
Like whatever works. Like if that works in your schedule and that works for you, that's fine. But
don't, I mean, I think we have noticed in our own life that less than once a week seems to create distance.
Yeah.
At least it can lead to that. So I don't think that's a rule or anything, but I think we got to be, if we work this, if you work these things, it's going to work out fine. I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah, I think the key is just making each other a priority. Don't deprive each other and realize that this is a gift from God. So it's really important that we practice it in our relationship regularly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, thanks for having the idea and reading all the sex books and stuff.
Right. Read.
Yeah.
Sure,
Very good. All right. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Marriage Monthly. We hope that you'll do a couple things. One, would you subscribe to this podcast because it will make sure you don't miss the next time we talk about sex or any other great topic. We're well into this thing now. There's dozens of other shows you can go back and listen to. Hope you'll do that. Also, share it with somebody because we would love to get the word out about how to have a happy, lifelong marriage. And then one thing that you might not know about, but I want to invite you to, is we would love for you to check out our church, westsidecommunitychurch.com. We love what we do, and we have such a great time building marriages even here. So thanks for being part of this. We'll see you next month.